great. I brought a dragon with me today. This comes from Kyoto, from the headquarters of the Jodoshin sect. Maybe it's upside down. Do I have it upside down? Yeah. You guys see it? One of my favorites. This was brought to me by a former graduate student who's a Jodoshin priest in Hawaii. Anyway, we were talking about some dragon energy today, even though not directly. Okay, this is always a little, you can see my notes and see you guys at the same time. First of all, I want to take a moment and once more acknowledge the terrible violence that's occurred in our world, specifically close to home in this country. And remember that we're all a part of this community and we all have a responsibility to each other. And let us pray that sanity and kindness prevail. The topic that I picked for today was inspired by a short film done by a teacher named Myozan Kodo in Dublin, Ireland. And we'll send it out to you guys. It's a short film. They just got their very first small space. And so he was talking about what it means to have a Zendo and what a Zendo is. And it's very brief, but it really inspired me to return to that topic and talk about it with you, what that means. So our usual world, the world we usually concoct and live in, is dominated by achieving, ranking, consuming, doing, getting somewhere, looking around to see how far you've come. It's driven by consumption and the sense that if we just do enough, get enough, be enough, we will be safe, we will be happy, we will be at peace. This is ring any bells for any of you? It is endless. It is endless. It is everywhere. In concrete ways, we see stores containing more clothes and gadgets than anyone could ever need. We go to the grocery store and there's so much food and varieties of food for those of us that can afford it, that it's like, how many different kinds of potato chips do you need, right? We look at our lives and we wonder, do we have the right house? Do we have the right job? Do we have the right inner world? Does our mind measure up? What should we do to make it measure up? We consume food, things, knowledge, experiences, mistaking more for what's most real. We judge ourselves and others. To face our own minds and hearts is to face this fact, however coarse or subtle. When I added a little note here to myself that grief can undo this. Profound grief can undo this, can force us to see what needs to be undone and what's important. But we don't have to wait for that. The Zendo offers us a chance to allow all that to recede, to shed that way of being. It is more than a room where we get together. It is a sacred place where we drop all of that. I use the word sacred because I mean it, but I use it with care. For sometimes when we use the word sacred, it can mean some place where we have to measure up again, some place where we have to be good, we have to be worthy. That is not what I mean by sacred. Sacred is where we become ourselves and support others to do the same. To enter a sacred place is to enter this process. One of the most sacred places I ever visited was at the Dogen Museum, when the women who created the quilts of Gee's Bend put all their quilts up on the walls. The beauty that and the wisdom that came out of that community, the use of that which is worthless by people who are often considered worthless, the sacredness of their journey to create something with dignity and beauty just filled that place with sacredness. We are shaped by the environment we are in. Our self is not separate from the world we live in, and it's not separate from this place. When we enter a place such as the Zendo, we have the opportunity to be and do something different, to step outside of the threads of meaning that bind us and the values that are based and perpetuated by this world we normally live in, that ranks and judges. We allow ourselves to be free of that. I think of it as being held in the palm of the Buddha's hand. I think of it of sitting in here. I sit to the right of the Buddha. I feel the embrace every time I sit down, right? To be permeated with this reality that is radically different than the one we usually walk around doing, to be reminded of who we are in the deepest sense. That's the opportunity we have when we enter this place. It is also a place to be together with all who have ever sat here or in any other Zendo, anywhere in the world, or a place of refuge and peace, any place. To sit with them and with the ancestors and to come to know ourselves in the ways that are not determined by aggressive, competitive, consuming ways and cultures. Driven and anxious to be what we think we should be and what we think others should be. I talk about this as at the Zendo, but it can be in other places. You know, during COVID, before we could come back together again, Shinchu and I came here every morning. It wasn't just because we needed a place to sit. We could have sat at home. It wasn't just because it was good for somebody else. It was because this place is alive. It was because we wanted to keep this place alive. And we heard from you that it mattered to you that you could see the Zendo on Zoom. It mattered. But we can also find other places like this. A dinner table can be like this, a park, a stable, a garden, a kitchen, a redwood grove. But we are talking about this place and what it is dedicated to completely. If we allow it, it will support us to shed all the toxic ideas we have, especially the ideas that want us to turn Zen practice into one more competitive endeavor, one more way we rank, we strive, we consume, we judge. One more way in which we try and be good enough. Now, personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with competition. You know, putting your whole heart into winning at something, a hockey game, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you know it's not who you are, you can have some fun and be at peace, whatever the outcome. And if you have a place and a time when you shed all that, in here, when you take your shoes off, you have the opportunity to take off your narrow definitions of who you are. When you step over the threshold, step into a world in which all of that is irrelevant. There's no need to do battle with your mind and heart. There's no need to push away anything. You don't need to push away your heart that longs to be valued and esteemed by this culture. No need to condemn yourself for your fearful, judging mind or your arrogance, your thoughts of being better because of this, that, or the other. They will happen. I guarantee it, if you're paying attention, right? The point is to cease the battle. The point is not to do battle with the battle. The point comes from returning again and again and again to another way of being in your life. We think we have to become something. We think we are the self we usually experience ourselves to be. That we are something that needs to be made into something else. And we better work really hard at it, or it won't happen. We mistake the discipline that is called for in Zen practice with a kind of self-generated effort that gets us to a place we imagine we need to be. But it's not like that at all. We are a self. It has a shape, a history. It bends reality to fit what has been and causes us to see things in ways that are familiar and that confirm the view we relied on in this world. And our culture supports this at every turn. But Zen practice is not about becoming something else. It is not about sitting on our cushion for some required number of hours in order to get something. It is about returning home to what is already true. We do not get rid of anything. We have a kind, determined spirit to realize what we already are. This is not about purging. This is about inclusiveness. That is what this and every Zendo invites us to realize, supports us to realize. And we do this in community. Last week, Reverend Taigen Layton offered a workshop on a set of Dogen's writings, the Eihei Koroku. This is a big fat book with discourses, poetry, lots of things in it. In it, Dogen speaks directly to his monks, most often in short teachings, short, pithy teachings. Some of them are longer. And it had been some time since I spent any time with this text. I admit I have not read it cover to cover, but I have dipped in and out of it, in and out of it, in and out of it, in and out of it. And it was a treat to hear Taigen's teachings and be reminded of some of my favorites and hear about some of his. So I picked two of the discourses to talk about today that are directly related to what I want to focus on, which is the nature of this place and the nature of coming home and what it means to physically step into a place that supports you, that you become it, and it transforms the way you are. So this first is discourse number 22. It starts, here is a story. Dao Wu asked Shi Tao, what is the essential meaning of the Buddha Dharma? Shi Tao said, not attaining, not knowing. Dao Wu asked, beyond that, is there any other pivotal point or not? Shi Tao said, the wide sky does not obstruct the white clouds drifting. So there's a lot that can be said about this particular discourse, but I just want to mention a few things today. First is Dao Wu's deep inquiry. He really wants to know. He is asking his teacher, what is this practice? What is this life about? What was the Buddha teaching us? What is the essential meaning of the Buddha Dharma? Why are we doing this? And Shi Tao generously points out, not attaining, no knowing. Anytime we say anything, we are capturing a living, vivid reality in a net of words, and it's very limiting. So these are words. Our mind is going to make up things about them, but they're pointing words. It would be easy to understand them as no need for deep inquiry. Just roll along in your life. No attaining, no knowing. It's all good, right? It's all good. You don't need to make any effort. But that is not what he's saying. He is saying, bring that inquiring spirit into a realm where attainment simply does not apply. Or what is most real cannot be captured by knowing, where our grasping self is undone and comes to realize another way. Dao Wu isn't satisfied. So still inquiring, he sticks his neck out and asks for more. He says, beyond that, is there any other pivotal point or not? What else? In a sense, he's still bound, but he does not stop with an answer that does not get through to him. That is really good. Shi Tao responds again generously. The wide sky does not obstruct the white clouds drifting. The self that we are, the life and vastness that is our true nature, is not obstructed by passing clouds, passing phenomena, passing ideas. It's not obstructed. Realize this. Realize this. Yes, we grasp, we want, we fall into consumption in one way or another. More. We want more. And we go about getting or hoping to get that more, this peace, our idea of realization, according to the ways of the self that is bound by a limited vision. We do that. But the sky is not limited by that. Our being is not limited by that. A telescope focused on a cloud cannot see anything beyond it. But that does not mean that what we see through the telescope is the whole. We say, step back, let go of your grip on what you think you want. Settle. In the midst of your unsettledness, settle. Commit to this process by coming home with the tenacity of Tao Wu and the generosity of Shuto. In the Zendo, if you can, or at any place where you can allow what is most real to teach you. This is not attaining. This is the not knowing that transforms us, and that the Zendo and any place of refuge can teach us. Another discourse, number 97, speaks of this in another way. This is one of my favorites. Dogen Zenji said, everybody has their own radiant light. The Buddha Hall and the monks' hall can never be destroyed. Now I ask you, where do you come from? The radiant light allows the radiant light to respond. So it's interesting to note that, I'll say something about that later. To start with, everybody has their own radiant light. We could understand this to mean that we possess a radiant light, and our job is to go find it, discover it, get it, grasp it, right? It's got to be in there somewhere. I just have to work really hard to find it. But this is not accurate. Our radiant light is no different from the radiant light of all beings. It is not something that we possess, and yet it is uniquely ours. We are, each of us, both of the same nature as all beings and a unique expression of life itself. This light is our light, it is just light, and it is through the prism of our own life that this light shines. Each of us a little different. We can rely on this. It is not something that we have to go find. We can rely on this. We can entrust ourselves to this. We can come to know this directly. It is already there. But then we say, who can see it? The light cannot see itself. And yet, reflected in all around, we can perceive it. Dogen Zenji goes on and says, the Buddha Hall and the monks' hall can never be destroyed. What has this got to do with the light? But it's precisely this place, or any place of refuge, where we can taste the light. One interesting fact is that we don't know exactly why Dogen relocated from the Kyoto area to the far north Ichizen province. It could have been strife with a more dominant Buddhist tradition in Kyoto. That's the usual story. Or it could have been a desire to practice in the mountains, or it could have been the fact that a major donor came forward to offer land and support. But we do know that the year before he made the statement is when he made a major move with his community to far north. He says the Buddha Hall and the Monks Hall can never be destroyed. We can also think of this in another way, though. The environment that supports realization can never be destroyed. When we entrust ourselves to that place and come to know it, be in it and of it, it is never absent. How do we come to know this indestructible place? By taking ourselves and our hearts and minds, the whole mess of them, over and over and over and over and over, to a place that teaches us that, a physical place, a relational place, sometimes a metaphorical space that pulls us into intimacy with our lives and the lives of others. A place that shapes us into a being that remembers who we are in the deepest sense. This is the Zendo, the refuge place, the place that surrounds us with this teaching and supports us to realize it. That is indestructible. Dogen Zenji goes on. Now I ask you, where do you come from? Where do you come from? And how do you know? The you that grasps and hurts and longs for peace, the one that finds joy in singing with others, the one who has fleeting experiences of the vitality and serenity that's available to us. Where does that person come from? Where do they go? He's not asking us to come up with our life story. Not that that's not that that's irrelevant. He's asking us to go deeper. He's asking us to realize the reality of the vast blue sky and the drifting clouds. You know, this language can sound lofty and not relatable, but it's not really. It is as pointed and real as every aspect of our lives. When we come to realize this together, where do we come from? We spot the arising of the self as we sit over and over and over again. That thought, that opinion, that feeling, we don't know. We don't know. But the reality of where we come from is there. We are a self that is real, and it is not a fixed self. It is the whole of it, more than we can imagine. Dogen Zenji tells us, the radiant light allows the radiant light to respond. When we bring ourselves in all our messiness and our struggle, our happiness and our grief to our community, when we sit together, sew together, sing together, serve together, build this temple community together, and open our doors to others. When we allow the practice and this place of refuge to shape and sustain us, radiant light allows radiant light to respond together. And again, the thing is, we may not see this or know this about ourselves, at least not directly, or at least not in a moment. We may continue to regard ourselves as a limited being with flaws and humbling aspects, because we are. We're not that. We are human. We are foolish. We are limited. And we are more than we can think. Vast sky, unobstructed by clouds, radiant light that responds to late radiant light. Simple, ordinary. This Zendo, this humble place of practice, built from and sustained by the efforts of ordinary beings, is a place in which radiant light responds to radiant light. Never doubt that. Never doubt that when you take off your shoes and enter this place, you are where the essential meaning of the Buddha Dharma is alive in every cushion, in the floor we work together to put down, the altar our friend Jim made, the bells that are struck by our friends, the silence we give each other in Zazen, the melding of our voices in chanting. This community of radiant light permeates this place. And it extends beyond it. When you enter here, you are giving yourself the opportunity to rest from attaining, grasping, consuming, and come into a sacred, ordinary place with all beings. And I want to say specifically to those of you who are at home or at a distance from this place, you are here too. You are here too. And when you enter your place in your home, I see someone's in a car, find that place, honor that place. Be curious about how that's true. Thank you. Questions?